This video is going to give you some practical tips on how to build effective teams. We're going to talk about how a team charter really sets you up for success as a team. So first of all, what is a team charter? I think of a team charter as a roadmap. Usually it starts out with the vision of the team or the purpose or mission. Many times a charter includes team values or shared team responsibilities. And I'm a big proponent of a team charter including something called team norms, which are those rules of engagement that allow team members to be really clear on behavioral expectations that they are going to be held accountable to. So let's talk about a team charter, and let's begin with vision. And vision, as I think about what a vision is, it's that desired or future state. When I was a leader of a board many years ago, I had each team member write on an index card what was their vision for this team. Well, I had our board members sort of think about a year later, we're sitting around the table, our board term is finished, what would you hope that our team accomplished? And as we think about vision, and certainly we're talking about team vision, which is that desired or future state, I also had them think about their desired future state for themselves. Think about your own leadership. At the end of this board year, what would you like to have different about your leadership? How would you like to have grown? I had them put those index cards in an envelope, and then a year later, I presented each one of those team members, including myself as the leader, their vision. And it was exciting to see that some of those goals or vision statements, if you will, that those team members wrote actually got accomplished. And what was more exciting too, not only did our team accomplish those things, but I think personally, each team member really asked themselves, wow, this is how I wanted to be as a leader, and this is how I grew. And a lot of people, as they looked at their vision statements, some of them grew in different ways than they even had envisioned. So that's vision. As we think about that team charter, many teams, it would be very beneficial to sort of say that's our desired future state. Now this is all in alignment of your organization. And certainly that team needs to think about their organization's vision statement and sort of see how their department or team fits in. That's an intact work team, but you can even have a desired future state for a small project team to sort of say, where do we want to be in the future? What do we want to accomplish as we think about our project? So that's vision. Let's move into purpose. Purpose, I always think about purpose and mission statement being very similar. And in fact, when I'm asked to facilitate team trainings in the private sector as well as public sector, many times I will ask this question of a team: what would not be getting accomplished in this organization if this team were not in existence? Many times our purpose or our mission statement starts bubbling up to the surface. So purpose or mission, so important to be real clear on what your team is all about, and to have each of their team members being really clear on how each of their job functions rolls up into that team's purpose. So we've talked about vision, which is really the desired or future state. We've talked about mission or purpose statement. Let's talk a little bit about team values. And team values, we've all heard them, right? Sometimes we think of respect, or that we're going to listen to each other, or sometimes having a service orientation would be a value. Many team values really has their foundation, if you will, in the organization's values. And so as you're thinking about your values, many times it's a word or one or two words, and there's a definition. So respect, this is how respect plays itself out in our teams. And so values being so important. And as I think about the importance of values to the success of a team member, many organizations actually use team values in their interview questions. And so we're hiring team members that already are aligned with that organization's values or team values. Well, I'd like to be a little bit more specific as we think about values, and so we're going to be moving from values to something really, really specific, and that is something called team norms. And so let's just say that respect is a value that you really want your team to operate, and you've had some conversations about what respect looks like. Here's the challenge with just having a value. if we're not really specific on respect, for example, many people may have a totally different definition. And so I always like a team to really be clear on team norms, or another word you might have heard is rules of engagement or guidelines. And so how you incorporate that in your team is that, and I always think about team norms being really coming out from the team conversation. And so you could always start with the value. You could say, hey, you know, our team really values respect. Specifically, what behaviors would be respectful for our team? And maybe somebody may say, well, you know, we don't interrupt each other. Okay, or maybe we're clear on what engagement looks like in our team, so we're all focused and attentive, and that's what respect looks like. So team norms are those specific statements, and they're really defined. And because you know what good teams do, not only do they know what the team norms are, but they hold each other accountable to those norms. And as a leader, you play a critical role in making sure the norms are part of the fabric of your organization. Many team members say, hey, we've got our norms, but how do they really work themselves out? As a leader, you can bring them up in team meetings. You can maybe have an agenda item that just spends a few moments saying, hey, how are we doing on this norm? Or you could be real vulnerable and you could say, how am I doing as your leader on this norm? You can provide positive feedback on norms. And so there's a lot of ways that you can make sure those norms are really a part of your organization in terms of your team. Well, we talked about vision, we've talked about mission, we've talked about values, we've talked about team norms. Certainly as you think about your roadmap, your team charter, certainly should talk about shared team member responsibilities so that every team member knows that no matter what your job function is, you know, this is your expectation. The other thing I think is important as you think about a team charter is processes. And so I don't know about you, but I've been in team meetings where maybe a critical decision needed to be made, and maybe the person that had the loudest voice makes the decision, or maybe the leader makes the decision, or we're not really getting the engagement of everybody around that critical decision. And so you might want to even incorporate in your team charter, how do we make decisions? When we are stymied, when we have a decision that every team member needs to be a part of, how do we make it? And so you might want to even think about decision-making processes. You might also think about, you know, what do we do when our team members are engaged in conflict? And I hate to use the C word, but what happens? Do we have a process? It could be, wow, we actually want differences and disagreements in our team, and I hope you do, because that's how we get the better answer. But you might want to even think about, in terms of your charter, here are some processes as it relates to decision making, as it relates to conflict. You might have a process as it relates to some communication. You know, how many of us have had emails that just went on and on and on? So as you think about your charter, you might even think about communication protocols. You know, how do we write an email? Or here's how we use the subject line, right? No reply needed, or you know, this is action needed, or whatever. So you can see that your team charter really is that structured roadmap. And as you think about your intact work team, or maybe part of you are on a cross-functional team or even a project team, I'd encourage you to think about bringing this team charter process into your team. Certainly as a leader, you might start the process of a team charter, but I also encourage you that your team can certainly be engaged and participating, certainly as it relates to team norms, certainly as it relates to shared team member responsibilities, that people are all engaged in the process. Team charters is that critical document to make sure that everyone is engaged and bought into your organization. I'm Dwyer Bang. Thank you for listening.